What up, players? So this video is mostly gonna be about moving to Japan or moving within Japan, and it's just gonna be some basic advice, some very helpful advice about about moving. Just the main points. I'm not gonna get too much in detail, but just on the basics of what you gotta look out for, things you gotta be careful for. But for anyone new to this channel, obviously it's a game channel, so since it's a game channel, I'll start off with a bit of game. So I've talked about this many times on my channel before, and it's how the importance of your location, your logistics, when you want to live a player lifestyle. When you're looking to actively live a player lifestyle where you're just trying to have a lot of fun, you're trying to bang a lot of women, logistics is a huge part of it. If you don't have your logistics right, you're making living a player life so much more difficult. Basically, to maximize your player life and maximize the possibility of getting laid, ideally you want the ideal situation is when you can live within 10 to 15, max like 20 to 30 minutes walk of a pickup spot, somewhere downtown, somewhere very central. That's the ideal situation. Yeah, so you want to live somewhere central, you want to live somewhere easy to access, you want to live somewhere ideally that's cool, that has a lot of chicks around it. If the more inconvenient your place is, the harder it's going to be. Trust me, that's the basics. So yeah, get your logistics right, and then if you're an average guy with average game but you live in a very good location, you can have an exceptional sex life. I believe that to be 100% true. Yeah, so yeah, to get into the meat of today's video, this is more about moving to Japan or moving within Japan. And I'll start off by saying, I'll cut the bullshit and start by saying that moving in Japan is an extremely tedious and frustrating process. It is awful. It is awful. It's really hard, especially as a foreigner. I don't want to play the victim card too much, but it really is. Japan is notoriously hard to move to. So you understand that, first of all. So basically, when you're moving to Japan, keep the same idea, like logistics. It's a game channel, so logistics is everything again in Japan. It doesn't really change. This goes for anywhere in the world. It's not only a Japanese thing. But start off by saying that you want to find somewhere within walking distance. Ideally, that's the ideal situation. Somewhere downtown, somewhere central, somewhere that's easy to get to. A short train ride. It just becomes harder the more you have to jump on trains. If you want to live somewhere very central, that's ideal situation. But I'll talk about finding the kind of place you're gonna want to live in, the things you should look out for when moving to Japan. And first of all, there's different kinds of places in Japan, obviously. There's apartment buildings. Apartment buildings are generally in Japan, it's not like apartments in the West. An apartment building in Japan is like a cheap wooden structure. It's generally the cheapest kind of building that people live in Japan, and they're not great at all, for the number one reason that they're extremely cheaply made. They're generally wooden structures. The walls sound like drums. I've lived in apartment buildings before, and it sucks really badly. The noise, even if your neighbor isn't trying to be noisy, you can literally, it's like sharing the same room with someone. It's even worse, because I said the walls are like drums. If someone's above you, it'll sound like a drum when they're walking around. It's really horrible. The noise pollution in apartment buildings sucks really badly. Ironically speaking, for the first 4 years I lived in Japan, I lived in one, just because it was given to me by my company. But luckily, I mean, luckily I had no problems because I had exceptionally quiet neighbors. But I would never take the risk to live in apartment buildings again, because when I moved to Tokyo the first time, I lived in an apartment building, and it was really, really bad. It's really not worth it. You know, it's really, really frustrating when you know, like someone's like drumming on your wall, or you know, not even intentionally. It's just they're just going about their business. And if you combine having really bad neighbors with an apartment building, you lose your mind. Like you look at Japanese news stories and you'll see someone like stab their neighbor over some you know, noise complaint. And I totally get it. Like I totally understand how people lose their minds that way. Fucking mosquitoes everywhere. Yeah, mosquitoes. Damn, it's fucking hot here in Japan. But yeah, so you really want to avoid apartment buildings at all costs, I would say. You could get lucky, but you're probably, yeah, it's not worth it. You're gonna take a risk, because even if you go to view an apartment building, you're not gonna know who's, you know, the person could be out. It might sound fine, but when they come in, you're just like boom, boom, boom. It's gonna be really, really frustrating and annoying. I might as well get into it as well. The other thing is, obviously, you have to go through a lot of real estate agents, and that's going to be an annoying process too. And I will say this: never ever trust the word of a real estate agent. They don't care. They will lie. First of all, they don't want to deal with a lot of foreigners. That's another frustrating thing about being a foreigner in Japan. A lot of real estate agents just won't want to deal with foreigners, but if they do, they're probably going to try and rip you off or give you the worst of a bad bunch, just like kind of leftover places. That's what I think, and that's what my experience is. So you really have to do the work. You have to go on the real estate websites, and you have to find the apartments that look good to you. Never rely on on what a real estate agent, you know, advises you, or you know, if you ask him, you tell him what you want. You know, I want such and such. Give him your, like, what you think you'd like, because don't trust him. He's going to offer you the shittest, worst places. So you're going to have to go scroll through those websites, and you're going to have to, you know, find them, contact them, and you're going to have to book viewings yourself. Never rely on a real estate agent. That is some of the best advice I can give you. Never rely on a real estate agent. Find the places yourself. If you ask a real estate agent, you know, just give him what you would like. Tell him the stats of the you know, the place that you would like, the size, you know, the location. He's going to offer you, generally speaking, the worst places that he's just trying to get rid of. Yeah, so you're going to have to book places. You also would, even if your Japanese is good, but definitely if it's not, ideally you really want to go with a Japanese person, because they're less likely to rip you off if you go with a Japanese citizen, a Japanese person. Really, like, you really should. As I said, even if you can speak Japanese well, it's still worth going with a Japanese person to the to the viewings and everything, just so you, like, they're just going to be less likely to try and scam you and stuff. Because so yeah, that's apartment buildings. The other type would be, you know, obviously houses. I've never lived in a house, can't say too much, but yeah, I mean, if you are living in a house, then you're probably not going to deal too much with noise issues. And obviously, if it's in a city, it's going to be mad expensive to live in a house. But unless you're sharing, and again, if you're sharing in a house, the noise issue is going to be a problem, even with your people, your housemates or whatnot. So I wouldn't personally. I don't want to share a house or anything like that. So I can't offer too much advice on it. I wouldn't do it. I'd rather live alone. The other type, other than apartment, is like a steel structured building. So apartments are wooden, but you know, you always want to find out if it's a steel structure building, a wooden building, or a concrete building. Steel and concrete are obviously better than a wooden structure, but concrete would be the best. And the best kind of place that you're going to live in Japan is what's called a mansion. And a mansion doesn't mean in Western terms like a big house. A mansion in Japan means, generally speaking, a concrete building. Sometimes it can mean a steel structured as well, but you're gonna have the best sound insulation from like the outside world and from, you know, from noisy neighbors and stuff. And trust me, it makes such a big difference. Such a you know, you want your place of residence to be your kind of sanctuary where when you go in there, like no one, because Japan is, it's so crowded and everyone's in such close quarters that when you're being disturbed by someone in the middle of the night and they're fucking waking you up at all hours, yeah, you just don't want it. So it's really worth trying to find, I would say, if you can afford it, like a mansion. Because with the wooden structure buildings, like in apartments and everything, you're just taking a risk that you're gonna live in this very, very frustrating environment. It's just gonna be very annoying, and you might end up fucking catching a charge for assaulting your neighbor. Nah, but seriously, yeah, it's just so much better. And it's just worth just going to see the place in person. It's so worth it. Like I would say, because you can do online viewings and you can view your apartment, you know, obviously through a video call or whatever, but you really need to go and see it. You really want to see the logistics. You want to see what the building looks like. You want to see, you know, does someone live above me? Does someone live, you know, what kind of space it is. Ideally, you don't want anyone living above you. That's for sure. If you can get to the top floor or a building that doesn't have anyone above you, that's ideal. If it's a mansion, as I said, a concrete building, it matters much less. I mean, if it's a good mansion, someone can live above you, but it's a concrete and the sound insulation can be very good. Obviously, the more you pay, the more likely the building is going to be good, unless you're some, you know, real estate agent is scamming you really badly. But as I said, that's why you go and you do your research and you have to find the places. Never ever rely on a Japanese real estate agent to advise you about places. You're gonna have to use them at some point. You're gonna have to, but you just find the place and then you book a viewing. You don't let them tell you places. It's the worst thing you could do. They will 9 out of 10 times they are going to give you the bottom of the barrel places because you're a foreigner. I'm not even playing the victim card. That's my experience. That's what I've seen. And you don't want that. And you want as I said already, you want to try and get a Japanese person there with you so they can know, because in Japan they have all these things called key money. It's like extra deposits. You have to pay the owner of the building. They'll try and rip you off. They'll try and take it at a cleaners. And you know, they'll try and lock you into like all these weird contracts where, like, you know, like 2-3 year contracts, like, and then, you know, there'll be penalties if you leave early and stuff like that. They will, like, Japan has this reputation for being a very honest country and very safe and all that, but this is where it's dishonest. Like, they lock into these little sneaky little contracts and like little extra fees and little, you know. Another thing Japanese will do is when you're moving out, they'll get you with fees. That's the other thing that's very, very, very frustrating about you know, living in Japan. It's like it costs you money to leave. Like, even if you've kept the place spick and span, no damage, anything, they'll get you for cleaning charges. Even if you clean the place, like, you know, spick and span, they'll be like, oh, you know. I mean, I had a the last place I lived in, they tried to get me because the pipes got rusty in the bathroom. you know, that's because they were shit pipes, you know. Obviously, it's like that's kind of out of my hands if the pipes were getting rusty. But you know, they tried to get me to pay for a whole brand new set of pipes for the sink and the shower head. It was just because the whatever, the ventilation was bad, or it was cheap. They were cheap, you know, furnishings or whatever. But yeah, they will literally try and get you for that. You got to fight them at every corner of it too, because if you let them take it to the cleaners, they will take it to the cleaners. So yeah, just all these things. But I think if there's anything you can take away from this video, is that when you're looking for accommodation in Japan, you have to do the heavy lifting yourself. And trust me, it is heavy lifting. It is extremely frustrating, but it's way more frustrating to not have done it and end up in a place that just sucks, and yeah, you're getting ripped off in, and you know, it's noisy, and you're paying way more rent than Japanese citizens would, and you've all these you've terrible contract where you've like penalties for leaving early and all. You just want to avoid all that. So you got to get on the real estate websites. The main one in Japan is called Suumo, SUUMO. That's the one. You just gotta, you know, it's all in Japanese. It'll give you a headache just looking at it, especially if you don't speak Japanese. Even if you do speak Japanese, it's like, you know, can be difficult to navigate, but it's really worth it to do it, because there's a lot of there's tons of places, there's tons of great places to live in, but there's tons of bad places too, like really bad places. Like, it has to be said, a lot of Japanese buildings suck really badly. It's just, I think it should be illegal to make building like that cheaply insulated and with no sound insulation, but there's so many of them in Japan, like just these cheap ass, like, you know, kind of Happy Meal structures, like that you'd get out of your Happy Meal, like apartments that you'd get out of your Happy Meal. They're just so cheap and crap, and you want to avoid them. And again, it depends on where you're living. Like in Tokyo is obviously going to be the more expensive, most expensive obviously in all of Japan, but other cities are a lot more affordable, so yeah. If you have any questions about moving in Japan, if you want to book a consultation about game in Japan, about moving in Japan, about anything to do with living, moving, gaming in Japan, hit me up. Check out the links in the description. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything I missed out on, any other kind of details you want to know about moving to or moving within Japan. There's a lot more detail I can get into, but I'm just trying to give you the gist of what you want to look out for. You know, trust me, there's a lot of very frustrating things you have to deal with when moving in Japan. You have to get these documents that you won't even know where you have to get them. You'll have to go to City Hall. You'll have to register in the City Hall that you're leaving. You'll have to register in a new City Hall to the area that you're moving to, even within the same city. This is just the start of it. Not to mention the contract. It'll be like 50 pages long. You'll have to go you'll have to do like you'll have to do 5 meetings with them. You know, if you haven't done it, you can't understand, but it's very helpful to have a heads up about what it entails. Yeah, so I mean, I'll just mention briefly, like there are places that accommodate specifically to foreigners, but they, again, they tend to be cheap. They tend to be the worst kind of places. Yeah, so you know, and then there's probably very high-end places that accommodate to foreigners, but in general, nothing in between. It's like, you know, if you're trying to find a decent, good deal, you know, there's no like real estate. Either way, never trust a real estate agent in Japan or anywhere. Do the heavy lifting yourself. You'll have to deal with them eventually when you're trying to book a viewing and you're trying to do all the contract stuff, but just to get the place, yeah, you have to find the place. Go and see it. Find out what kind of building it is. Is it made of concrete, metal, wood? You know, is there someone living above you? you know, is there someone beside you, you know, is there all that kind of stuff. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, I'll leave it there. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace. Bye bye.